Hi again, I'm Peter Lotz of Copenhagen Business School. This is the third and last of my lectures on competitive analysis. In the previous lectures, I presented the competitive landscape. Now, I shall wind up the lectures with a view on competences. Obviously, it takes competences to create a new business, and it takes even more to succeed. So we start by asking the question of whether a company like GG Rehab can really develop into a so-called full-fledged supplier. Can it not only develop a new product, but also produce it, market it, distribute it, service it, and build and fund an organization that supports all of this? Or will it run aground at some point in time? Can it make it all the way? In this lecture, you will learn how to think about the prospects for a startup, given the fact that it will need additional competences to grow from baby to a mature company. Business history is full of examples of entrepreneurial business which start out with a brilliant idea, but which never reap the fruits of their creativity and hard work. One of the early stories in this area comes from the medical instrument industry. It's the case of the company EMI and the CT scanner. It is no wonder that the case still attracts attention, for the story is really illuminating for the issue of differences between companies. In short, the CT scanner was developed at EMI by an electrical engineer, Godfrey Hounsfield. From 1949, he had been working at EMI in England in their radar division. Here he invented the CT scanner in the late 60s, and EMI started to produce CT scanners for hospitals in 1972. It soon appeared, however, that EMI was not able to produce and sell these scanners as effectively as other companies, and already in 1979 EMI was forced to sell off its CT scanner business. This is just one out of many examples of companies which introduce new products just to see other companies running away with their business. EMI was a true first mover in the sense that the company had developed the product, which by the way was truly unique, and decided to produce and market it as fast as ever possible. EMI actually did earn a decent profit the first few years, as long as the company was basically the only producer of CT scanners. But competition kicked in already less than 2 years after the launch. And while the first few producers were not very dangerous, the entry of General Electric in 1976 changed the game entirely. General Electric was a major American producer of medical equipment, not the least X-ray and other diagnostic imaging machinery. Despite EMI's head start and profound research, in 1978 GE became the market leader and EMI started to lose money. And again, in 1979 EMI had to sell the CT scanner business. Why does this happen? Why couldn't EMI keep its pole position? The answer is indeed very simple. GE was much better positioned to develop, manufacture and to sell such a product. Yes, EMI and Hounsfield's team had a very thorough knowledge of the technology. Hounsfield even received the Nobel Prize for his invention. But that was not enough to be successful on the market. You also had to be able to develop the technology into a user-friendly machine, to design an efficient manufacturing process, to source components from the right suppliers, to manufacture the scanner in a lean way, and to market, to sell, and to service the scanners. In all of these areas, GE had superior competences compared to EMI. In hindsight, it is not at all surprising that EMI did not make it. The case of EMI and the CT scanner is a great example of the problems that a small company faces. Small companies, almost by definition, lack a lot of the competences that are needed to serve a market. In many industries, this has resulted in a division of labor between new and old companies. In medicine, little biotech companies have generally given up the idea of developing into full-fledged pharma companies. Instead, they sell themselves, all the knowledge and patents, to big pharma. The same goes for many software industries, including, for example, computer games. Perhaps EMI could have been better off by selling the business already a year or two after the launch. So what is the lesson from this case? It basically winds down to the simple advice to try to foresee how the product and its market develop, and from there to identify which competences are critical to prevail. If you do not possess the competences from the start, you have two basic options. Either you acquire the necessary competences, or you find the appropriate time to sell the business to somebody who has them. The first option, to acquire the competences, is costly. You must spend resources in either building or buying the competences. The second, to sell the idea early, gives you a much smaller return than you probably had hoped for. But the alternative that EMI chose, that is, to trust that your core competences alone can fly you to the moon, is at least very risky and most likely worse than any of the two other options. So what about DG Rehab? Does it stand a chance in this perspective? Well, that's a good question. Is there a risk that somebody else takes over the business? Despite all the efforts to make the application self-guiding, could it be that beyond a small segment of enthusiastic users, the product actually needs massive service? And that is better handled by, say, the municipality staff or therapists, and that the municipalities gradually develop their own applications? Or could it be that new companies develop similar private services that municipalities will buy instead of just buying the application? These are important questions to ponder, preferably before too much effort and money are invested in the business opportunity. With this, we have come to an end for my 3 lectures. So let me summarize. The launch of a new product on the market is difficult and risky, but much can be done to foresee problems. The first task is to survey the competitive landscape in order to identify the factors that may steal your hoped-for profits. These include potential competitors, strong suppliers or customers, and potential new entrants and substitutes. The second task is to identify the needed competences to succeed in the competition. Great ideas are not sufficient for success. It takes a wide variety of competences to earn just a bit of money. This is, by the way, exactly why you will be disappointed when you learn how little your own great idea can bring in. The world is full of ideas. The scarce resource is the competences to turn them into business. But thinking ahead in the ways that I prescribe gives you a solid foundation for choosing a strategy for your own venture.